video, I will briefly talk about the camera in general, so what it is, and mainly its history and development. So you may ask what a camera is. Well, I'm sure that majority of the people here who are watching this now know what they look like, as they surround us in many ways in this modern age of technology. But what are they really? That's what I'm going to explain to you now. Instrument for recording or capturing images. The images may be individual still photographs or sequences of images constituting videos or movies. The camera is a remote sensing device as it senses subjects without any contact. The word camera comes from the Latin word camera obscura, which means dark chamber, and is the Latin name of the original device for projecting an image of external reality onto a flat surface. The modern photographic camera evolved from the camera obscura. The functioning of the camera is very similar to the functioning of the human eye. The first permanent photograph was made in 1826 by Joseph Nicephore Niepce. So now I'll talk about the history and development of the camera more in depth. I'll begin with the camera obscura. The predecessor to the photographic camera was the camera obscura. Camera obscura, Latin for dark room, as I already mentioned, is the natural phenomenon that occurs when an image of a scene at the other side of a screen, or for instance a wall, is projected through a small hole in that screen and forms an inverted image, so basically from left to right and upside down, on a surface opposite to the opening. The oldest known record of this principle is a description by a Han Chinese philosopher, Mozi. Mozi lived from 470 to around 391 BC. Mozi correctly asserted that the camera obscura image is inverted because light travels inside the camera in straight lines from its source. In the 11th century, Arab physicist Ibn al-Haytham, Al-Hazen in English, wrote very influential essays about the camera obscura, including experiments with light through a small opening in a darkened room. Ibn al-Haytham's writings on optics became very influential in Europe during the Renaissance through Latin translations, inspiring people such as Rutello, John Peckham, Roger Bacon, Leonardo da Vinci, René Descartes, and Johannes Kepler. The use of a lens in the opening of a wall or closed window shutter of a darkened room to project images used as drawing aid has been traced back to the year 1550. Since the late 17th century, portable camera obscura devices in tents and boxes were used as drawing aid. In the history of the camera obscura had been around for years, but no one had been able to preserve the images in a photographic form. It was only in 1826 when Joseph Nicephore Niepce used the camera obscura for coming up with heliographs, also known as sunprints, which made it the first tool in history to be used for photographic purposes. It can be said that these heliographs were the prototype of today's modern photographs. We used light to draw the picture. The resulting photograph is very different from the photographs we know today though. Niepce made use of an engraving and a bitumen-coated metal plate, which was then exposed to the light. The darker, shadowy parts in the engraving were able to block light, but lighter areas allowed just enough light to react with the chemicals on the metal plate. The image had initially been invisible, but after placing the metal plate in a solvent, it helped produce the image of the engraving. There are two major cons to this method though. It required 8 hours of exposure to create the image, and after it appears, it tends to fade away quickly, so it wasn't very efficient. Niepce had the idea of transferring images on another medium for a more permanent solution, although not enough to be counted as successful yet. Louis Daguerre, Niepce's partner, worked on his idea after Niepce died in 1833. 4 years later, Daguerre succeeded in in creating the daguerreotype, which is the first practical photographic process. He unveiled the daguerreotype in 1839, where he showed how he used a silver-plated copper sheet that has iodine vapor to help it give it a light-sensitive coating, which is silver iodide. The resulting image was developed in mercury vapor, which was then fixed with a strong sodium chloride solution. The daguerreotype camera was a box-shaped device made by Maison Sus Frères in 1839. The device also had a lens. The lens was made by Charles Chevalier. In 1888, George Eastman patented Kodak roll film camera. Eastman was a pioneer in photographic films usage. He also started manufacturing paper films a few years earlier, in 1885. His first Kodak box camera was indeed very simple and also very affordable. In 1890, the first mass-marketed camera, the Brownie, was also presented by himself. It was on sale until 1960s, which means it remained very popular. In 1948, Edwin Land invented the Polaroid camera, which could take a picture and print it in about 1 minute. The Polaroid camera somewhat remains very trendy and popular nowadays as well, but it's obviously way more different than the original model that was manufactured in 1948. In 1981, Sony launched the Sony Mavica, the world's first digital electronic still camera. Digital photography and television images are related to the same technology, so this camera recorded images into a mini disc and then put them into a video reader. Images could be displayed to a television monitor or color printer. Soon after, in 1986, Fuji introduced the disposable camera. The inventors of this device called it the single-use camera. In 1991, Kodak released the first professional digital camera system, also known as the DCS, which was of a great use for photojournalists. It was a modified Nikon F3 camera with a 1.3 megapixel sensor. This was the beginning of a great era, but also a very controversial one. After 9 years, in the year 2000, Japan Sharp's GSH-04 introduced the world's first camera phone. This was a revolutionary idea of the Japanese company because it's hard to imagine a smartphone nowadays that doesn't have a camera, or not even a smartphone, even a normal phone that doesn't have a camera. And after 5 years, something important happened as well. The Canon EOS 5D was launched. This was the first consumer-priced full-frame digital camera, so it marked the entrance into a highly technologically advanced age that we now live in. After this model came out, the markets blew up with competition from several companies and also different models. And as these models started to appear, they didn't stop, and they're continuing to be manufactured and grow until this very day. And the rise of the camera and photography made a path to an era that cannot be stopped.